Support for Petri Dish is made possible by UT Health San Antonio, committed to transforming the health of the community through a team that tackles problems from every angle, doing everything it takes to bring each patient the best possible outcomes. From teaching tomorrow's healthcare leaders to translating research into new treatments, UT Health San Antonio strives to make lives better. Learn more at everythingittakes.org.
A few months ago, while still tangled up in a lingering viral pandemic that hasn't really let us go, TV viewers the world over were introduced to a chilling idea.
And Dr. Newman, you're also an epidemiologist. I presume the prospect of a viral pandemic keeps you up at night as well?
No.
But you, just to be clear, you do think microorganisms pose a threat?
Oh, in the most dire terms.
Bacteria?
No.
Not bacteria, not viruses, so...
Fungus.
Oh, fungus.
True, fungi cannot survive if its host's internal temperature is over 94 degrees. And currently there are no reasons for fungi to evolve to be able to withstand higher temperatures. But what if that were to change? What if, for instance, the world were to get slightly warmer? Well, now there is reason to evolve.
The Last of Us TV show, like the iconic video game that inspired it, has brought to agonizing life a post-apocalyptic world ravaged by a global warming-induced pandemic in which fungi, in this case cordyceps, take over the bodies and brains of the infected, compelling them to kill in an effort to replicate. And then, just a week after the season 1 finale aired, the Centers for Disease Control sent out a disconcerting tweet. It said, Candida auris, a deadly fungus, saw a steady increase in U.S. healthcare facilities in 2020-21. Now, can Candida auris turn us into murderous zombies? No. But it has killed between 30 to 60% of those it has infected. Is it likely to cause a Last of Us-style pandemic? No, but infections in American hospitals are up 95%. The threat posed by this fungus is real. The CDC calls it a serious global health threat. So, what do we need to know? From Texas Public Radio, this is Petri Dish. I'm Bonnie Petrie.
Yeah, and this was kind of inaugurated in 2005. Yeah.
On the edge of a college campus, on the edge of the city of San Antonio, is a nice but nondescript building.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Ari. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the best kept secret in UTSA.
That houses the South Texas Center for Emerging Infectious Diseases at the University of Texas, San Antonio.
Well, STCID is a group that grew kind of organically here at UTSA because there was a group of us whose main interests are in microbiology and immunology. Mm-hmm. And soon after I arrived here, I would say like 2006, 2007, we kind of got together and assembled this group. And we cover kind of the whole gamut of infectious diseases, really. So we cover bacterial infections, fungal infections, parasitic infections. And
Dr. Jose Lopez-Ribot is a professor of microbiology and the associate director of the STC EID.
All the stuff that you do here.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get interested? When did you know you were interested?
How did I know that I was interested in microbiology?
Yeah.
Normally, I start when you're a little kid, really, playing with microscopes or something like that. I remember looking. I remember I had like a toy microscope, and I remember looking for pots of water and then looking at things that move around and things along those lines.
And Lopez-Ribot's real microbiological passion is fungi.
Everything about fungi is interesting. From their wonderful role in their environment They play a huge ecological role. I mean, literally, they are the major decomposers of organic matter. Literally, if it wasn't for fungi, life on Earth wouldn't be possible because organic matter will not decompose. We'll be literally walking on cadavers. So first of all, that's fascinating. I mean, the fact that we have somehow domesticated some of these fungi for us to make wonderful things like beer and wine and yogurt and bread. Those are always used yeast. And when you think about it, those are the staple of food through the millennia.
Yes, fungi are our friends. We've evolved alongside them. They live on us, on our skin. They live in us, in our microbiome. According to the National Institutes of Health, we inhale between 1,000 and 10 billion spores every day. But sometimes things get out of balance. Some of you may have experienced an overgrowth of Candida albicans after you've taken a course of antibacterial antibiotics. The medicine kills off some of the bacteria that keeps the yeast in check, and suddenly you're miserable with an infection and you're at the drugstore begging for a tube of Monostat. You can also get candidiasis in your mouth. It's called thrush and is characterized by white patches and discomfort. I've had it. It's not fun.
But those are what we consider the superficial and non-life-threatening infections. It just happened that these Candida organisms can also cause much more serious infections that we call invasive and can affect every single organ in your body.
If a person's immune system is compromised, or if they're in the hospital because they've had surgery, or they're in the ICU on a ventilator, or are otherwise medically compromised, these usually harmless little bugs might seize the opportunity. They're opportunistic to invade your system, get into your blood, and target your organs.
And in this type of patients, fungal infections are very serious. The mortality rates are very, very high. And that is because, we almost have like the perfect storm. Difficult to diagnose, difficult to treat, and development of resistance.
There are hundreds of different species of Candida, and even the usually friendly ones, like Candida albicans, can cause this type of trouble. Still, there are 3 types of antifungal antibiotics, and while the development of antimicrobial resistance is a growing concern, they usually work pretty well against albicans. But in 2009, a new member of the Candida family emerged out of nowhere. Candida auris.
Candida auris is something rather unique in our field of medical mycology because really we observed the first infection with this organism come kind of out of the blue in 2009 in a patient in Asia.
Yeah.
And really this organism that before we have never heard about, it has never been reported as a causative agent of infection, spread throughout the world in a matter of 5 to 10 years.
By 2022, this new pathogen was in 30 countries. The first U.S. case was documented in 2016, and now it's been found in 28 states and the District of Columbia. And the number of new cases spiked in 2020 and 2021, causing alarm at the CDC.
What makes Candida auris such a serious concern is that, first of all, very difficult to diagnose. Second of all, it's highly resistant because I was telling you that we have basically 3 different classes of antifungals. Most of the Candida auris isolates are resistant to 2 of these antifungals already. And then we are seeing the emergence of these strains that we call panfungal resistance that are resistant to all 3 classes of antifungals.
Lopez Ribat says a pan-resistant invasive Candida auris infection, an infection for which you have no treatment options, can be a death sentence for a vulnerable person. And there have been outbreaks of C. auris among vulnerable people in healthcare settings across the country. New data compiled by a CDC research team found that in 2021, cases reported by healthcare facilities increased by 95%. One reason for that, the viral pandemic of COVID-19, crowded hospitals with staffing shortages as well as shortages in equipment and PPE. These are all big problems when this fungus enters the building because it spreads pretty easily.
With Candida auris, it contaminates not only the skin of the patients, but it contaminates medical devices, the beds, the linens, and it makes it highly transmissible. So a nurse or a doctor attending one patient that happens to be contaminated with Candida auris and then will go to treat another patient may spread the infection within the unit. So you have to really implement very serious epidemiological controls.
But that's another concern about this particular fungus. It's resistant to disinfectants.
It is highly resistant to disinfectants too. Yes, you are absolutely right. So a lot of the disinfectants, the common disinfectants that we use in our hospitals currently, the Candida auris is resistant to them.
Well, that's terrifying.
Okay, terrifying is a big word, and yes, it is not an organism that is going to cause like a huge pandemic like the one that we've seen with COVID-19 or anything like that.
Or cordyceps in The Last of Us.
Because we observe this very particularly in certain clinical settings. Outside the clinical settings is probably not going to be such a huge problem. But obviously, when it affects so many patients in clinical settings, is a major concern.
And watching Candida auris emerge in 2009, spread around the world, and develop resistance to our existing medications for a microbiologist is concerning. Why is this happening?
To tell you the truth, the theory that is gaining traction is, and is happening not only with Candida auris, but with other fungal infections. The theory that is gaining traction is because of global warming. And that is obviously a major concern. Not much that we can do about that right now if we don't get our act together and think seriously about that.
That sounds familiar, like something a fictional TV epidemiologist said a few minutes ago about evolution.
We know that fungal organisms, in order to infect us humans, they have to have the capability to grow at 37 degrees. And that's what has stopped a lot of these fungi actually from infecting us. But it may be that because of global warming, they are getting better adapted to the higher temperatures that eventually may mean that they are better adapted to infect us.
So if fungi are going to adapt to better infect us and to evade our treatments and our disinfectants, we'd better develop some new tools. Some may say we need to start thinking big. But in Dr. Lopez-Ribot's lab, they're thinking small.
So nanoparticles, in particular silver nanoparticles.
More on that when Petri Dish continues.
Support for Petri Dish is made possible by UT Health San Antonio, committed to transforming the health of the community through a team that tackles problems from every angle, doing everything it takes to bring each patient the best possible outcomes. From teaching tomorrow's healthcare leaders to translating research into new treatments, UT Health San Antonio strives to make lives better. Learn more at everythingittakes.org.
Welcome back to Petri Dish. I'm Bonnie Petrie.
So this is my lab. Okay, this is my lab.
Dr. Jose Lopez-Ribot is a professor of microbiology at UTSA and the associate director of the South Texas Center for Emerging Infectious Diseases. And this is his lab.
This is a fungal lab. This is just basically, strictly speaking, a fungal lab. The only thing pretty much that we do here is study fungi. And you're not going to see a lot of highly specific, sophisticated equipment here, because here we use kind of for the day-to-day growth, incubation. We have the incubators. We have a robotic machine here that you can actually automate for a lot of the pipetting and liquid handling. So make things much faster.
What's this?
This is just water.
It's water. There's something in there.
They want to know everything there is to know about Candida auris and its development of resistance.
Resistance is pretty much the way that a microorganism has to defend against an attack. So, because antibiotics are either trying to kill the cell or trying to inhibit growth, they are putting a high degree of what we call selective pressure. So the microorganism is going to respond to that attack. So the microorganism senses the antibiotic treatment as an attack. If you are attacked by somebody, normally your tendency is to try to defend yourself. The way microorganisms defend themselves is by developing resistance.
C. auris also has an unsettling resistance to disinfectants. A can of Lysol or a bucket of bleach aren't really much of a match against this particular fungus. Why? Biofilms. What's a biofilm?
Very simple. Is a community of cells, of microbial cells, that is attached to a surface and is normally surrounded by a matrix of polymeric material that protects the cells within the biofilm.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. A matrix of polymeric material is not very simple, so just think of it as a protective layer, a shield that encases and protects perhaps billions of fungal cells from attack.
So most of the cells within the biofilms are going to be increasingly resistant to antibiotics, antibacterial antibiotics, antifungal antibiotics. And the other main consequences is that those biofilm cells are also protected from our host immune system. So when you put those two factors together, you can appreciate how much more complicated it's going to be to treat a biofilm infection as compared to a regular infection.
So we need something that can break through the biofilm to get to the microbe, in this case, the fungal cells.
Just basically think about something that is going to create probably like massive pores in the cell membrane and cell wall of this microorganism, something that actually works well for fungi, but also against bacteria. And because of that, they have such a powerful antimicrobial activities.
Well, we're in Lopez Ribat's lab. Turns out we're in the right place.
We were kind of the pioneer group in the world of fungal biofilms.
And they've developed something that can poke holes in biofilms.
So nanoparticles, in particular silver nanoparticles.
Well, that sounds very science fiction.
You're talking about something that is so small. I mean, nanometers in diameter. And just when you have such something that is so small, and silver, we know that silver has been antimicrobial for ages, right? But when those silver nanoparticles were pretty much the only thing that will take care of such a biofilms, we apply for a patent because we can incorporate also those nanoparticles like in clothing material or fibers. So that will be a good way that you can treat Candida auris in the environment.
So you're breaching biofilms with super small pieces of silver?
You can think of super small pieces of silver, yes.
We have to be careful when we say stuff like that because people will start gobbling on megadoses of silver.
No, you cannot, no. This is for the treatment of probably inanimate surfaces or perhaps eventually like a skin or superficial treatment. This is not... Those nanoparticles will be toxic if you take them systemically, like if you drink or you inject or something along those lines.
Lopez Ribat says there might be some promise with silver nanoparticles for treatment someday, but today's not that day. So don't go buy a bottle off Amazon and start drinking it to protect yourself against fungal infections. We're not there yet.
What we need to do really is to increase our awareness of fungal infections, invest more money in the development of new antifungals, and really, work with people, including clinicians, to increase the awareness of fungal infections.
Right now, there's nowhere near enough investment in drug development for new antifungal antibiotics, especially with COVID-19 causing many people to experience a weakening of their immune systems that may worsen with repeated infections, making more people more vulnerable.
Yes, absolutely. So, for example, even with the first wave of pandemic, not even repeat infections, we observe increased numbers of fungal infections in COVID patients. For example, in India, huge increased rates of fungal infections in hospitalized patients with COVID. Again, very resistant to antifungal treatment and very fast growing and leading to very high mortality rates. So, obviously, if COVID patients with active infections or through repeat infections, eventually we demonstrate that is leading to immunosuppression, then those patients are going to be more prone to contracting fungal infections.
So this all sounds, again, pretty terrifying.
I don't think we need to be afraid. We need to be conscientious about this and try to do the right thing.
Which brings Lopez Ribot back into agreement with the imaginary epidemiologist from The Last of Us.
I think planet Earth is a wonderful place to live in, and we need to start treating it much better than what we have treated her in the last couple of hundred of years, because we're really messing up things big time.
Though it's doubtful we've messed things up bad enough that cordyceps are going to start turning humans into killers, a warming planet will continue to present us with daunting new threats. As far as Candida auris goes, CDC calls it an urgent antimicrobial resistance threat and says, quote, the rapid rise and geographic spread of cases emphasizes the need for continued surveillance, expanded lab capacity, quicker diagnostic tests, and adherence to proven infection prevention and control, the stuff they're working on in the lab at UTSA. Thank you to Dr. Jose Lopez Ribot for sharing his expertise with us. This episode of Petri Dish was produced by TPR News Director Dan Katz, Jacob Rosati, and me. Jacob Rosati also composed all the music and created the sound design on this show. Petri Dish is a production of Texas Public Radio. I'm Bonnie Petrie. Talk to you soon.